Sup boys, welcome to 1000 Words. My name is Radu, I'm a street photographer from Romania, and today I want to talk to you about this tiny little fellow right here. This is the 7Artisans 10mm f3.5. A beauty, a charming little lens, extremely well built, with a caveat that makes absolutely outstanding images. Stick around, it's bound to be interesting. The beverage of choice for today is Guinness. It's been quite a while since I've last had some Guinness. Oh, it's excited to meet me. Let me pour some. The dark, foamy Guinness. Now, this is supposed to sit a while, and it should be poured in such a way that it allows for the foam to settle a little. That out of the way. No point in describing the milkiness of it. Come on, man. Come on. You have to appreciate this. Just take a look at this thing. It's absolutely incredible. Oh my Jesus. Now, well, this is a video I was very happy to have been able to make. This is not sponsored. 7Artisans did send me this lens, so cheers 7Artisans. Thanks for the opportunity. I said I would allow this to sit. Such a liar. Oh boy. Now, where was I? The 7Artisans 10mm f3.5. While I do get to keep this lens, this was sent to me free of charge by 7Artisans. In return, I only have to make this video you're watching right now, and their only two requirements were that it's longer than 3 minutes, and if the past is any indication, this is going to be easily achieved. Most of my videos are really longer, much longer than that. And I have to provide at least 10 images to portray the abilities and characteristics of this lens. That as well is easily achieved. Other than that, I am totally free to say anything and everything I want about this lens. I haven't been asked to say anything specifically. I haven't been asked to avoid anything specifically. 7Artisans don't even get to see the video before anyone else. It's going to be available publicly for you and for them at the same time. And speaking of, I'm recording this, I think it is June 23rd. This thing is not even officially launched. I've been told it's supposed to launch late June, early July. And until then, I'm not really able to say much about it, but I'm recording this in advance. Now, there are some drawbacks to this lens. There are some niggles. I have a few gripes with this lens, and I will address that. There's no two ways about it. Before getting into the build quality of this lens, I do want to very briefly address the experience of shooting such wide-angle lens. Now, I never really shot anything that was wider than 24 millimeters in full-frame terms, and even that proved to be quite challenging at first. Now, I did get accustomed to that rather quickly, I must say. It's still, to this day, quite challenging to shoot 24mm in terms of full-frame field of view. I do need to qualify this because I am shooting an APS-C size sensor, so things need to be very clear. Now, while 24mm by itself is very wide, especially to me, seeing how I'm most comfortable around 35 to 50 millimeters, 10 millimeters, or rather 15 in full frame terms, was an experience I was completely unprepared for. Sure, it was exciting to have this opportunity, and that's why I even accepted in the first place. Also enjoy manual lenses a fair bit, so sure, it's a freelance. I was happy to accept this opportunity and do a review for this lens, but boy oh boy was I completely unprepared for this experience. 15 is so damn wide that at first I was completely dumbfounded, really confused, extremely lost, and I basically had no idea how to approach this. The first time I put this lens on my camera, and here, let me just go ahead and, if we're talking about this, let me show you how this thing looks on the camera while I talk about it, because it's really damn pretty, but we'll get to that. Now, I was saying, experience-wise, this is a beauty. This is an absolute beauty. But I digress. Experience-wise, this was a challenge to say the least. Now, at first I was completely unprepared and very confused about it. But very early on, I learned that if you let go of misconceptions and stereotypes, you quickly kind of fall into a flow state where things just kind of fall into place. Now, the way I saw things when I thought about something as wide as 15 millimeters on full frame terms, again, I thought architecture, I thought really wide vistas, grand encompassing landscapes of extraordinary mountains and hillsides and whatnot, even perhaps astrophotography, but that's also landscapes. It's not street photography that first comes to mind when you think of a focal length that's 15 millimeters, nor is it portraiture, but these two are the areas where I've had the most fun with this lens. On the subject of experience, I do want to stress this was extremely fun to use. Really very fun shooting around the house, photographing my baby daughter, taking pictures of my wife, portraits of her in a lavender field. You will see some images. It was extremely exhilarating, breathtaking even. I was so unaccustomed to a focal length, a field of view so wide, that it's really a novel experience for me, and I'm happy to have had it because this only further proved to solidify an appreciation for wider and wider focal lengths. Now, my experience as a photographer started by shooting 50mm vintage lenses on a crop sensor, which makes them something like a 75 in terms of full frame. I seem to gravitate further and further away from short teles and even standard lenses into the territory of wide-angle lenses. Now, this is really damn wide. I do have to stress this. And while at first somewhat confused and not knowing how to even compose with the lens that's this wide, I quickly found that if I let myself have my fun, things kind of start making sense. And sure enough, they did. Let's talk a bit about build quality. And actually, let me give you some technical specifications for this lens, because there is something about this lens that I find rather fascinating. It's a 10mm f3.5, sure enough, available in Sony E, Nikon Z, Canon R, Fuji X, the variant I'm using, and Micro Four Thirds mounts. It features an optical construction of 9 elements in 7 groups. This tiny little lens, which by the way, they call it a cookie lens. And to digress even further, it has a wonderful serial number of 00501. So that's really kind of a collectible almost. 108 degrees field of view, 5 straight aperture blades, a minimum focusing distance of 0.2 of a meter, aperture range of f3.5 wide open all the way close down to f22 with full stops in between. And I do appreciate the fact that there are only full stops. Every third of a stop, I think it's kind of rather silly. Completely manual, also in terms of focusing and aperture control, with a weight of 125 grams, which is basically just a quarter of a bottle of beer. And the filter thread size of 37 millimeters. Now, technical specs out of the way, the thing that's really outstanding about this lens is, on the one hand, it's extremely qualitative build design. The barrel and most of the lens, save for the innards, which are plastic right here inside the barrel itself, everything other than that, the barrel itself, the lens mount, the beauty ring, and the barrel itself, I think I said that already, is made out of high quality, I think it's aluminium, but it feels like very good quality metal, very tightly machined. It seems like tolerances are at their minimum. The aperture ring has very firm, very clear, very nice detents at every full stop, and that's very fine in my book. The focusing ring turns smoothly with a travel that goes about 40 degrees from infinity to minimum focusing distance. And on the subject of the aperture ring, it's where there's the first gripe I have with this lens. Actually, there are two gripes and both have to do with the focusing ring. It's rather small. Now, I'm not sure because just playing with it right now, it feels like it has basically given in a little. At first, it felt a little too stiff. I think it has. I really do think it has. Or maybe, perhaps it has to do with heat. We're in the middle of a heat wave here. It was only 33 today, but we're expecting 39, 40 degrees Celsius coming days. So maybe the Vaseline, the grease inside the helicoid, has maybe loosened up a bit, because at first I thought the focusing ring was a bit too stiff, requiring a bit too much force in order to be operated. And while, sure enough, very smooth in terms of how it feels when turning, it's really damn thin. See how thin it is? This thing requires both fingers to operate, and at times I found myself having to grip it ever so slightly too firmly, which made it dig into the fingertips of my fingers and leaving marks. Now, it's not like I'm hurting, I'm not a snowflake, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, and more so than anything, from the standpoint of ease of use and ergonomics, the way I shoot most manual lenses is just by using the edge of my finger like this, and almost like if I had an imaginary focus stab. See? That's how I use most of my manual lenses, and sure enough, today it seems like it has given in a little. I think it has. But during the first week of my using this, it was a little stiffer than I'd have liked. Now, on the same subject, there's the second issue, which is the bigger one at that. And that is the fact that, seeing how it's such a wide lens, and there's a very pronounced bulging front element right at the end of the lens barrel here, holding my finger just like this, I am decidedly going to take a picture that's going to be polluted by some part of my finger. Here, take a look at this image. While I do take good care of my composition and how I hold this lens, it's just a matter of a split second of carelessness, and you're going to be spoiling and ruining your images by having your fingers show up inside them. Ideally, I would have liked the focus ring and the aperture ring to be reversed and have the aperture ring in front of the lens and the focus ring closer to the mount of the lens. which would have solved, in my mind at least, would have solved both of these issues with having to grip it too tightly and having your fingers show up in your images. Now, save for that, using this lens has been a joy. It's a marvelous little lens, and the more I play with it, the more I do think that it's either due to heat or perhaps just normal wear that the focusing ring has become slightly more fluid in operation, easier to turn. Now, other than that, this lens is extremely well built, no electronics whatsoever, really good engineering. There's no loose things, there's nothing shaking inside it. It feels really dense, and it actually reminds me of the Voigtlander 40mm f1.4, which is, in my book, the best built lens I've ever used. The way it feels in hand, it's so small yet so heavy. There's a very luxurious density to it that makes you feel like you're holding an artifact, something that's extremely valuable and expensive and well built, and this is very close to that. On the one hand, 125 grams on paper really seems like not a lot, but seeing how small it is, it's quite hefty. It has a reassuring heft, and sure enough, I think this will outlast me. That out of the way, let's talk about image quality. The first thing that's apparent as soon as you take the first look at any images made with this lens is the fact that it's crazy, stupid sharp, but only in the center, because perhaps due to some field curvature, I haven't yet made up my mind about this, but perhaps due to some field curvature, or perhaps due to the optical construction and the way that they built it so it's a rectilinear lens. Let me digress a little. I perhaps should have started with this. Usually lenses such a wide field of view are what they call fisheye lenses. They are really distorted, creating an image that's basically like a fisheye view. But this lens is a rectilinear lens, which is to say that shot dead on, straight parallel with your frame, all lines will be perfectly straight. There's basically zero, just the tiniest smidge actually, of geometric distortions. But for most intents and purposes, this is extremely well corrected. It's entirely rectilinear. Now, once you do tilt your camera upwards, downwards, or to the sides, lines do begin converging. As long as you shoot it straight like this, it's frankly remarkable how they managed to make this lens a rectilinear lens. I'm not entirely sure how they managed to do that, and perhaps that is why the corners are soft. And there's some softness, there's some smearing, a bit of swirly action going on in the bokeh if you shoot it right. In the middle of the image, this lens is bitingly sharp, razor sharp. Its ability to resolve detail and render resolution is simply remarkable. Now, I've shot this on my X-T3 and the X-M5 shooting me right now, which is basically the same 26 megapixel sensor, and it resolves this easily and effortlessly, and I'm sure there's going to be absolutely no difference in resolving power once you put it on a X-T5 on a 40 megapixel sensor Fuji makes these days. Colors are really nice, vivid, punchy. They're decently saturated, enough so that you can get away with shooting just JPEGs if that's your cup of tea, but the way I like to shoot things is by using RAW and processing them afterwards. A tiny smidge of extra saturation does wonders for this lens, but even if you're not going to process your RAWs, JPEGs are absolutely amazing. Really vivid. It's got natural looking colors that are lively and punchy without being over the top. Image quality is simply superb. Let me briefly go back to the fact that this lens exhibits some softness in the corners. While I understand that might be due to the way it's rectilinearly corrected, it's not doing any disservice to this lens, because the way I learned to use this lens, and I think that's how you basically use ultra-wide lenses like this, is you avoid putting anything that's your main subject or anything that's important near the extremities, because it's exactly near the extremities where this lens distorts. Now, it doesn't distort in the way that it bends geometry. It distorts in the way that it's making features and objects look much larger than they are in reality. And I think that's basically unavoidable with any lens that's a wide lens. So just mindfully and carefully place your subject in the general center part of the image, and you're going to have ample sharpness. Now, I've mentioned colors, really pleasant, vibrant, rich, with a joyous quality to them. They're natural, very true to life and faithful, while being joyous and vivid, almost singing. Now, maybe the beer, maybe the fact that I'm really excited with this lens, but it appears I've turned into a damn poet by now. What else? Yeah, the slightest amount of geometric distortions in the way of the tiniest smidge of barrel distortion, which is very easily fixable in post, but for most intents and purposes, you can just use this lens as is, because it's practically rectilinear. Its optical construction and its coatings do a fantastic job at keeping this lens out of trouble. Shot directly into the sun, it only produces the slightest of flaring, and it's a circular flare at that, which is neither here nor there. It's not entirely special, nor very characterful. There's very little, if anything, in the way of ghosting. Loss of contrast is minimal. Shoot it directly into the sun and stop it down to f8 or f11, and it starts producing some really pleasant sun stars. Now, I'm not a big fan of sun stars, but those of you that are going to have a blast with this lens. Most surprising, very remarkable quality of this lens is its ability to stay out of trouble in harsh, difficult lighting conditions. Now, I know a lot of lenses, most lenses that cost upwards of thousands of dollars, that are absolutely put on their knees, shamefully at that, shot in situation when there's, like this one, when there's a lot of contrast. A lot of lenses go crazy with fringing and chromatic aberrations in situations like this, but not this one. There's absolutely no chromatic aberration to be spoken of with this lens, and it's truly amazing and remarkable. Now, I realize by now I may sound that I'm overly enthusiastic and very, what's the word, laudative? I sing its praises like there's basically no other lens like this one, but I shit you not. I'm extremely pleased with the images this lens makes and its ability to handle tough shooting situations. Now, I'm not sure how much this is going to cost, because it's not fully launched by now. There's basically nothing in the way of any meaningful information about it on the internet, and certainly no pricing yet available, but I'll just go ahead and venture a guess. Let's see how well this ages, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this is going to cost somewhere in the area of $175 to $250. I'd be really surprised if it's any less or more than that. Now, I've done a little monochrome work as well, but seeing how well this performs in color, I've mostly stuck to shooting it in color. This performs equally well. Blacks are inky and deep, well represented, so are highlights. They're very bright, vivid, and shiny, almost metallic looking. Very good for any sort of black and white work, but it's really in color work where this shines. Take a look at these images where I've photographed my wife in a lavender field, and tell me if it's not absolutely magical. A wide-angle lens such as this one, a 15mm field of view equivalent, is not something that you first think about when you talk about portraits, but I've had quite a tremendous amount of fun shooting my wife with this, and even my daughter. I think it's a fantastic performer, does a marvelous job. Now, in closing, there's not much else to say about this lens. It has exceeded most of my expectations. While I was waiting for this to arrive, I thought, hey, I'm going to have a bit of fun with it and just sell it and make an honest buck or three after I'm done with the review, because yeah, it's free for me. I'm going to sell it for half price to somebody that really wants it, and somebody's gonna get a good deal. I'm gonna make a buck or three, pay a Artlist subscription or whatnot, go out with the wife and have a nice lunch sometime. But after having used it, I think I'm gonna keep it. It's not usually my kind of focal length. I'm a guy that's really comfortable around 35mm to 50. Hardly ever any longer than that, and certainly only rarely wider than that. This is such a nice lens to have, and sure enough, I really enjoy the fact, it may seem really trivial and superficial, but cookie number 00501, that has a nice ring to it. I really like the design. The colored markings on the barrel here remind me of some old school vintage Nikkor lenses. It's really well built. It sits very nicely on the camera. It makes for an extremely compact and portable package. This is nearly pocketable if you have really large pockets. But sure enough, it can go inside a jacket pocket. It balances really well on the camera. It takes fantastic images. It's a joy to use if I can get accustomed to keeping my fingers well tucked in here and out of the frame. And if it does turn out that the Vaseline, the grease here, has softened a bit, and I think it did. I really do think it did, and the focusing ring turns easier than it did on the first few days. I think this is the lens to own for that rare occasion when you want to go really ultra wide. f3.5, considering this wide of a field of view, is nothing to brag about on the one hand, but it's also nothing to sneeze at. It's honestly sufficiently fast, coupled with the very capable sensors we use nowadays. Sure, you're not going to go shooting cave diving with this lens, but for most intents and purposes, it's fast enough. A remarkable lens at that. I'm very grateful to 7Artisans for their offer to let me test this lens ahead of time. It even makes me feel somewhat special, because I imagine I'm on a bit of a short list of people that got their grubby little or big hands on it. I can't wait for this to be fully launched. On the one hand, to be able to publish this video, on the other hand, to see its pricing and see what other people have thought about this lens. I'm really interested and curious to learn other people's takes on it. As far as I'm concerned, it's a very niche lens, no doubt about it. I don't think I'm going to want to be without it. Basically, that's the gist of things. I hope you enjoyed my images. I hope this was worth your time. Thank you for watching. I have been Radu. Until next time, farewell.